Welcome to Beyond the Breakwater, where just beyond the crashing waves of fear, discomfort, and doubt lies the greatest potential for life transformation. We want to guide you into the open waters where the calculated risk you take becomes the turning point for you or your organization to thrive. So draw up your anchors and prepare for departure in this week's episode of Beyond the Breakwater. We're back with another week, and it's our 1-year anniversary of Beyond the Breakwater podcast episode.
Exciting.
So yeah, it's really awesome. Yeah, thank you, Marsha, for being a part of it.
Yeah.
So if you guys did not listen to last week's episode, go ahead and make sure you check that out. We had Marsha on. This is our second episode with her. We talked about a lot more of like the heart of what the Bridge Food Center is, hearing what it's like for a day-to-day with her, how she got brought into it. The kinds of people she gets to love on every single day. And so now we are going to be jumping into more of those nuts and bolts conversations of, okay, what does it really take to run this thing? Because if you guys are thinking of starting something like this, we hope to answer a lot of those questions. And if we leave any questions unanswered, I'll just say this at the front end, like you guys can email us at hello@beyondthebreakwater.org. We would love to start a conversation and just carry on that dialogue. I know, Marsha, you're busy, but I know you make time for things like this.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yep.
And we also have monthly workshops that we're hosting where we have groups of people, teams of people coming up. We'll talk about all of the concepts we've talked about on the podcast today, but we take you around to all of the ministries. We've got the Bridge Food Center, we've got Pivot Point Appliance and Job Creation, His Hands Auto, Gateway Healthcare. So all of these different ministries that the church has built bridges into the community to intersect with those outside of its walls. We take you to all of those. We have these conversations. So email us again. We'll have that list and we'll let you know upcoming dates that you guys can bring a team, and we'd love to have you.
Yeah.
This is really exciting, Lyndsay, because we've had listeners ask, give us the nuts and bolts. And so it's been a whole year. And so now, I mean, just not only today having Marsha, but we're going to be having different managers from these different ministries in the weeks ahead, because now we want to get into the nuts and bolts. So I know that's a big preface for what we're doing today, but we're going to try to help every person who's listening today. If you're thinking about a food ministry, take out a pad of paper and start taking notes, because I think we're going to help people. How do you get started? What do you do? What's it look like? What's the day-to-day operations like?
Yeah. So I think I'd like to jump into it from the perspective of a shopper. I'd like to kind of take all of the listeners through kind of wear different hats. So we'll do the shopper hat. We'll do the, like, in your shoes, all of the questions people might be asking of like, okay, how do you accept payments? Where do you look for suppliers? Can anybody just buy stuff at wholesale? We'll wear that hat. We'll look at community partners, volunteers. Okay. So just for listeners to know too, like we're going to be going through all of these different areas, but let's start with the shopper and their experience at the Bridge. Okay. So kind of paint the picture, Marsha. A shopper walks into the Bridge Food Center and what do they see?
First, they see carts, and immediately following, they see a desk, a welcome desk. And there's always a volunteer there greeting every customer that comes in the door. If you were listening last week, we're a grocery store, but we're in it for the people. So we welcome every person. If they've been there before, they're going to have a little card that has a UPC code on it, and we just scan that. So the program we have is actually a kind of a homemade system, but we track, we ask them their name the very first time they come in. If they're new, we ask them their first name and their last name, what city they're from, and it doesn't matter, even though we're in Midland, Michigan. They can be from anywhere. We ask them how many kids under 18, how many adults over 65, and then every other adult, right? So we get their breakdown of their family, and then we ask for their email and cell phone if they'd like to communicate with us with a monthly newsletter. Then we give them a little tag, and they're good to go, and they start shopping on their own, and they see fresh produce as they walk in. It's just it's a grocery store, right?
So
they see refrigerators and aisles, and
so it's like, okay, I'm a shopper. I'm showing up. Is it like membership based? Like then I have to have a membership to shop there?
You could call it a membership, but it's free. It's really the reason that we gather that information from our customers is so that we have data. First of all, I think we started gathering data just because we wanted to know, like, how many people are we helping? Is this worth our time?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And then as time has gone on, we've been able to use that data to help us with fundraising, things like that. So we can say, here's how many people from Midland County and Bay County and Saginaw County, and here's how many kids under 18 that we've helped, and here's how many seniors, right? So there's different people in the community that are passionate about seniors and about kids. And so it gives us data to share that. So we don't share individual information. It really is just their information that gives us cumulatively to use it that way.
So how would you explain to, I'm a new customer, how would you explain, like, what's your elevator pitch to them? You got like 7 seconds. What would you say?
7 seconds. Yikes. Marsha doesn't say 7 seconds for anything. We just let them know that we're here helping families that make less than $72,000 a year. We reassure them that that is a lot of people in Midland County. In fact, it's 28% in Midland County and even higher in the surrounding counties. So they're not unique in coming to the bridge. We accept cash, credit, and debit, and our prices are just a nickel over wholesale. And then once they check out, we're going to help them with extra items that they may not have purchased, such as fruit and vegetables and bonus items.
So can you explain the difference? Let me preface it by saying, like, listeners, like, everybody, all the questions that we're going to be asking, like, everything has been set up with such intentionality. Like, there's, I don't think, one question that I'm going to ask today where either Marsha or Ed will say, oh, it just because. Like, every single thing has a reason. So why do you explain to shoppers, why don't you lead with the card of, this is our bonus section, this is where you'll get free items after you make your payment for your haul, your grocery haul.
Right. So I think we mentioned our target audience is that ALICE population, which is the group typically above poverty that does not get other state assistance. So their goal is to provide for themselves, right? That's the dignity of providing for themselves. So if we start with, here's the free stuff, then that doesn't feel like anything different than a food giveaway. And their perception of that is negative. I don't want to be at a food giveaway. I'm not going to take it away from anybody else. So we start out with, all the prices are marked on the items, and you can go pick what you want, and then we'll help you with all the extras once you're done. So really it's that dignity piece of letting them go in and pick what they want and make their menu from their meals items, and then we just reward them with all the extras.
Stretching the dollar,
bridging the gap.
Yeah. So how do you qualify people? I know you said you ask shoppers the question at the beginning of, like, oh, it's for 72,000, but if somebody is making more than that, do you turn them away? How do you make sure that you're actually serving the demographic you've set out to serve?
Yeah. So part of the dignity of shopping at the bridge is you don't have to prove income. So people will call and go, what forms do I need? Do I need to bring my tax returns? Like, no, it's on the honor system. I would say that a lot of people, you can just tell by their facial expression or body language when you say, we're here to serve families that make less than 72,000. They're like, are you kidding me? If I made that, I wouldn't need to be here. So really it is on the honor system. We don't do that. We've seen very, very little abuse of that. And if it was, I don't know that we would even see it. But yeah, again, that's the dignity piece.
Yeah.
And we reassure them that the information they give us is just for us, right? We're cumulatively using the information. We're not giving away their information.
Yeah. Okay. And is there anything you'd else ask from, like, the shopper perspective?
Well, I think I want to jump into this one part because that's been a concern of people, like, oh, but people might abuse it. When we're buying food and selling food, you can't really abuse that, because if somebody came in and bought the whole store out, we would just turn around and we would purchase everything and we have the money for it. So the only thing is that, let's just say somebody came in at 90,000 and didn't say anything and just wanted to get cheaper food. They're getting cheaper food, but the only thing they're really taking maybe is the bonus items that somebody might be like, oh, they shouldn't have taken bonus items. But that's 3 items, up to 3 items.
Right.
So I think we did a really good job, and I think this is really important for people to hear, that we did a good job of safeguarding it so that we don't have to ever be concerned of somebody taking advantage of it.
Right.
And where do the bonus items come from?
So our bonus items, so again, that's if they spend $10, they get one, 20, they get two, 30 or more, they get three. That is donated by the community. So it might be a work group that does a food drive, or it might be a church that does a food drive. Might just be individuals that are like, hey, it was 10 for 10 at the local store and I bought 10 thinking I needed to do that. Right now I have 8 things I don't need, so they donate them. We get some things from Hidden Harvest. Really, it's a variety, but it's all given to people. So whatever is given to the bridge is given back. We purchase our groceries, and we'll get into that. We purchase our groceries to sell, but anything given to us is given back. The bread and the produce is given to the bridge, and then we give that back.
Okay.
You know what's really special for the shopper coming in too is that there's somebody right there. As soon as they walk in, they're greeted. And I know some grocery stores have done that, but I think for us, we call it the Welcome Center.
Right. Yep. Yeah, we want every person to feel welcome and to feel comfortable. And sometimes you can tell a new customer because they'll try to dive past that. They'll get their cart, and if you're talking to somebody else, they'll be like, "Oh, I'm just going to go past there because I'm embarrassed," you know. And our goal is to reassure them that there is nothing embarrassing about shopping at the bridge.
So then once you are an existing customer, what is your experience like then to return?
So when you come back, you'll have that little barcode, just like you have at CVS or Walgreens, right? It's got the little barcode on it. We scan that at every visit, and that helps us track the number of visits that we have. If they don't have that card because, they break or you forgot it in your other car or who knows what, we can look you up by your name. So, but every visit, there's a check-in. So every visit, they're welcomed and greeted.
And you guys always do something really fun of like at the welcome desk, there's always something like, oh, we have seeds from farmers. Would you like some of these? Or we have this meal, like take one of these things from each aisle and this is your whole meal, your family dinner. So why have you intentionally like placed that at the welcome desk, or why even have that at all?
So again, we don't know what's going to come in. Like you mentioned the seeds, we had somebody come in and they brought us like 4 bags full of seeds. And so we were like, wow, it's not quite planting season in Michigan, but we need to get these in the hands of people so that they can talk about doing that or plan on doing that. So it's the great place to have a conversation, to start a conversation, just to make them feel relaxed about being in there. We don't always have something for free at the front desk, but when we do, that's, we try to put it there sometimes just to engage. Some people have a green thumb and they want to just chat about, like, oh, do you know what kind of lettuce this is versus that? Nope, I don't. Tell me all about it. So it's kind of an icebreaker almost.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've noticed too. Even if it's like it's not a free thing, you're just saying, did you know you can make this meal with the stuff we have in our store? But I watch that be a place where you're starting conversations, relationships are being built, and all that. So I kind of want to shift gears to more of like what do we need to make this thing happen? Is there anything else on like the shopper experience you guys want to share?
No, I don't think so. I think they all go out with a big old smile on their face.
Yes, yes. So, now I'm just visualizing the store walking through, and let's like go through all the things. So again, we're at this welcome desk. What do you use to receive payments?
So payments are at the checkout station when they're done, and we use Square. That is our system. Point of sale.
Is that also the same program like you use to check people in?
No,
I guess?
it's not.
Okay,
actually.
Explain that.
So that one is actually a homemade system that someone did for us. Very simple in that there's just certain fields that we fill in. So I'm sure there's other things out there. We haven't researched those, but the system that we have is not linked to our point of sale. So we don't have our customers in both point of sale, and it is separate.
What about even like the card that people are using to scan in and the scanner? Where do people get stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So these are resources that we're willing to share too, right? Where we get our little tags. Those aren't cheap. So if there's other ways to do that, but I think that was how we started. You have to have a unique number for each person. So we have a vendor that we just ordered from. We probably started at 1 or 1,000.
We did.
We started at 1.
And we 001, I think it was.
Yeah, we just hit 10,000 of the cards when we just reordered the new ones.
That's huge.
So it is big. So So yeah, there's a supplier that has that. The scanner is part of. I am not a technical person. I'll tell you that right now. So it's just off the shelf
we went
thing.
onto Amazon and we just, in fact, I have to order another one. It's just, you just get a scanner.
Okay,
It's,
so that's just something you
it's
can.
called a one-dimensional 1D scanner. So I mean, they're $50.
Okay. Okay. See, this is
There
the
you
stuff
go.
I don't know where. Like,
And it just plugs right into the computer, and the computer knows. It just recognizes
Wow.
it, and just so.
this is stuff
It's
where
super
I
easy.
think this is like these are like, and I'm like maybe these are dumb questions, but I'm like people might be
No,
thinking
no.
of this
No,
stuff where
not
I'm
at
like,
all.
do I have to get some computer programmer to like write a code to understand the bar? You can just buy that thing off of Amazon.
Plug it in.
Great.
Right.
Plug and
Okay.
go.
Great. Easy.
And it's the same for the checkout. We use the same kind of a scanner that you just plug it right into the square, and then it just, so all the food has barcodes.
Yeah.
And so when we get a new item, I mean, it just gets put in the square, and then when they come through, we just scan it with a handheld scanner.
Okay. So
Super
you
easy.
just you get a new product, you scan it into Square, you set the price
Right?
that it's registered in the system, and then that's how it's checked out.
Right.
Okay.
So when we get an order in, if it's a new item, we do what you just said. We scan it and we put in the description that we want and the price that we want and who we bought it from and the order number. So it makes it easier in the future to reorder. Then once we've had that and we just order it again, we just add the inventory. Like, item 1, 2, 3, 4, we got 36 of those. So we add that. When a customer processes a transaction, when we process a transaction for a customer and they bought 2, now we have 34. The
Okay.
system automatically does that.
So, Marsha, talk a little bit about with the new store. We upgraded. It used to be like a human conveyor belt.
So yeah, in our first store, we actually, when Office Max was in business and they were closing, we bought a couple of countertops from them. And so, yeah, there was no conveyor belt or anything. So people would just sit their stuff on the counter and we would scan it and move it down by ourselves to the thing. So when we were moving to the new store, I'm like, I just want conveyor belts. And we have them, but you don't have to start with that, But
Yeah.
it is nice now we have conveyor belts. So yeah, there's things that we've grown into, but that you don't have to start with that.
I'm kind of surprised you didn't talk about the doors when people are coming in. You have to talk about the doors. 'Cause that was
You're right. That's the very
you
first
jumped right
thing.
past the doors to the shopping
I did.
carts, and I'm like, you skipped the best part.
I did. So so I actually made a list as I've been at the bridge the last 7 years. I'm like, these are the things that I really want. I should have brought it with me, but I wanted walk-in, coolers. I wanted automatic doors. I wanted conveyor belts. I can't even remember everything on my list. So the other store, when we first started, we just had the double doors, and somebody always had to open the door, or someone would run their cart into the door to try to get it to
Yes.
open, or you back up and use your hips to open the door. And so we had a lot of creative ways to open our doors, but almost all the time we'd be like, oh, someday we are going to have automatic doors. And when we got this new building, it was the first thing we did was take a video and went in and out and in and out and in and out.
It's like
Just-
Elf going around in
exactly.
the.
We're like, yes,
We were
did
having so
it.
much fun going out and in.
And we have a lot of customers that are like, you have automatic doors now. And I'm like, I know. It's amazing. So, yes, automatic doors are the first thing you see, besides our big sign outside that you
Yeah.
see. So we do have a big neon sign that's lit up outside so that we're on a road now that is much more visible to our customers than in the little L-shaped plaza.
Yeah.
But again, we did that for 7 years and it worked, and we grew in that 7 years. We just made a big leap recently.
So talk about the location while we're on that topic. Like where is it located? Where did it move? And why did it not start at the church?
Great question. So I think that, the Bridge Food Center is a ministry, as many of our ministries are. But and they always tell you this, right? Location, location, location. Doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're starting a new business, it's where it's at. If you want a house, it's location, location, location. Really, we started off campus of the church because people that aren't churchgoers aren't going to come to a grocery store at a church, right? They're going to be afraid that they're going to get preached at, or that they're going to get handed pamphlets, and they're going to all this kind of stuff. So to have it away from the church reinforces the fact that it's part of the community. It enables others in the community to come join the ministry because it's not at Messiah Church. It's in the community, right? And so we were part of just in a little plaza. That was where we were at for a long time. Now we are in a bigger store, and it's on one of the main roads, which just gives us better visibility. But we didn't do it at the church because, again, people don't want to go grocery shopping at a church.
It's a long ways from the church.
It is in location,
It's
you're right.
4 miles away from the church is where it's located.
Right. So the
So
part
it's
of
not like
town.
right around the corner.
It's a long ways away.
That is a long
In
ways
other
away.
town it
Yeah,
might.
Well,
but we
and-
wanted it in the heart of the community.
And we wanted it in the heart of the community on the side of town that the most need is there, right?
Right.
So every town has its, north of town, south of town, wherever it is. But where the bridge location is within the public transportation and within a closer distance than going across town.
And it's the highest population of Alice. We're right in
Yes.
Alice population.
Yes. That's what I was trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
And even from like physically, it's separate from the church, but also from the level of like marketing and its own website, Facebook page, all of that. Like all of that is separated for that purpose. Or
Yes.
were there any other intentions with why that was separate?
No, I think it's just remained separate to become more of a community ministry, right? It is a community ministry. So it's Elevate Community Ministries. It's the community that has the issue of Alice, and it's the community that can pull together to help resource
Okay.
and
Yeah.
help.
Yeah.
Messiah became the quiet engine. We really were incognito. We wanted to keep it out of sight. Messiah completely out of sight. But we did that so that everybody could feel like they could be a part of it. Because when a church puts a stake in the ground and they call it by their name, or they're telling everybody it's them, everybody else tends to scatter. So we were really careful about keeping it quiet. You could find out if you wanted to know, but we didn't ever tell anybody when they walked in the door.
Right. And people ask, and we would say, yep, that's who we operated under for a period of time, right? You have to have a 501c3 to be a nonprofit. And so we operated under Messiah's tax ID for a while. And then things changed, and Elevate Community Ministries was created as its own 501c3, in which the Bridge and His Hands and Pivot Point are all under that umbrella.
So let's jump back into the bridge space. So now talking about all of the products on the shelves, how do you decide what inventory to have?
So that's some customers would ask, right? But when I started ordering, I was kind of like, we had the basics, right? Ketchup, mustard, cans of beans, and SpaghettiOs and things like that. So we've just continued to grow, right? And I would look at it more as a recipe, right? If I want to make lasagna, do I have the things to make lasagna? Well, I had sauce and I had noodles, and we needed cheese, and you need burger. And so just kind of adding items as they came along to help enhance the opportunity to be able to get your items at the bridge. I think part of it is if you come to the bridge and you're able to get 40% of your groceries, then for 60%, you're going to go somewhere else and spend a lot of money. If we can up that to 50%, we're saving them that much more. Now it's like, I would say 85 to 90%, unless you're doing a specialty, we can get those. You have enough items at the bridge that you can make a month's worth of meals.
Now the cost, you've talked about, it's a nickel over what you pay wholesale.
Correct.
Why the nickel?
So the bridge started as a cash-only model, and that just didn't really seem to work really well because we're not a cash society anymore. We're a credit card or debit card society. So every time you swipe a card, it costs a percentage, 2% or 3%. So just a flat across the board, we said, let's do a nickel on every item, and that will help pay for those. It allows the bridge to accept debit cards, credit cards, and cash.
Okay. And
But we started out with cash because we didn't know if it would work. And so
The
we didn't
model
want to
would
go.
work,
Yeah,
right,
we didn't
yeah.
even know if we would stay open. In fact, there was a time that we were going to close it. It started out strong, and then it just kind of fell, to very low numbers that we were. I actually said I think we ought to close it.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, starting a new ministry is not easy, and it was the point that it just wasn't going. The concept wasn't going, and I said I think we ought to close it. And actually, the volunteer supervisor who was with me said, "Give it one more week." And actually, it was during that week that we found a meat vendor, and everything changed because we had meat.
I didn't know
So, I mean, we started with the old cash registers, that you punch the number in and then you pull the thing and the door comes in.
I missed that.
Because we just went online and we tried to find some cash registers that were cheap. And so that was the cheapest. So we had no inventory, no way to track inventory, no way to do anything but cash. And then that's how we started. And then as it slowly progressed, we said, now we need to, numbers are picking up. People want to buy, but they didn't have cash. So people come in and they don't have cash. So then they would leave. So we just slowly grew into everything that it is.
So the Bridge Food Center, surely you take the Bridge card, right? Talk about that piece.
Yeah, that is the biggest controversial question that comes up. So there's the viewpoint of, well, your name is the Bridge Food Center, so you take the Bridge card, right? No, we don't. Well, I have to have a Bridge card, right, to shop at the Bridge? No, you don't. So we spend a lot of time explaining out in the community that the Bridge is we're bridging the gap for people, and that we don't take that. The Bridge card in Michigan is food stamps from the state. And that is assistance. It is designed for those in poverty and below. I want to say like 30,000 and below. Don't quote me exactly on that, but that is the assistance that they get. And you can use that almost anywhere. Our target audience is those that make more than that. They don't get the assistance. They could use some assistance because they're not making enough, but the assistance that we're offering is different than that giveaway. And so people in poverty that are less than 30, they can shop at the Bridge. They just have to spend, they can use cash, credit, or debit and save and use there. So they can buy personal care items, things like that, that you can't use the Bridge card for at other stores, but they could come and get those items cheaper at the Bridge. So we don't take that. The other thing is a very simple answer. If you work with the state, and you accept the Bridge card, there's a whole lot of paperwork. And did I mention that the Bridge is volunteer run? We don't want to do that. So when people ask, do you think you'll ever do that? No, I don't think we will.
So what about like the competition piece? Like I think people have asked, like, are you competing with other box stores, Meijer, Walmart, Kroger? Like, are you taking away business that they could be having?
Well, if the Bridge wasn't there, would customers shop at Meijer or Kroger? Probably would have to, right? Or maybe the dollar store or somewhere else, because the Bridge is there. But we're probably in the local community closest to Kroger. And I did talk to the manager one day, and I'm like, how long have you been in business? They have no clue that we're there.
Yeah.
Right, they don't. In fact, we buy things from them to help supplement our inventory. So when we buy our wholesalers, we buy a lot of the canned goods, non-perishables, right, and our cleaning products and that kind of thing. We have other suppliers for our fresh dairy and frozen products. But Meijer and Kroger, they have great buying power because of who they are. And when they have cake mixes 10 for $10, guess what? Marsha walks in there and says, guess what? I need some cake mixes for the Bridge, right? Because the cake mixes that we get from our wholesalers are honestly more expensive than what they can get at Meijer. And we don't want to have items that are more expensive than other stores. That makes 0 sense to us. So we want to make sure we get affordability. So we will supplement, and they know that we do that, and nobody's ever stopped us from doing that.
Okay.
I think there's a key point there, though. Maybe talk more about it. Our goal is not to sell food. Our goal is to save money.
Yes.
Have people save money buying food.
Yes.
So if we're not cheaper than the other stores where they can get it, we'd rather send them to another store and say, you can buy this item cheaper over there. So we tend to not carry that. I mean, that's what we've been doing for years.
Okay. So what about buying things wholesale? Can anybody just do that, or what does it take to have those partnerships with suppliers?
Wholesalers,
Yeah.
yeah. So the wholesale suppliers, they have certain criteria that you have to meet in order to buy. You have to register and be approved. They usually have minimum order quantities. A lot of them are $1,000, which used to be a big deal to us when
Huge
we
deal.
started. We're like, oh, I don't think we have $1,000 worth of stuff to buy, and so we'd have to wait a couple weeks in order to get enough need to purchase. So no, you can't just walk into a wholesaler to do that. You do need to meet them, talk to them about your business, and be approved to do
So
that.
how, like, what are the practical steps for someone in that? Like, would you just like did you Google search these places and say like, oh, this is a supplier? How did you find suppliers? I guess that's the question.
Ed, I'm going to leave that to you because I know you got in the car and started looking.
We did actually when we would go down to Detroit with the truck, and we had just actually started out with a pickup truck, and then it went to a truck with a trailer, and then it went to a little bit bigger truck. And I would always go with another person, and he would drive. And while he was driving, I was searching for any food distributors anywhere around Detroit. And what we did is we made a point of it every time we went to Detroit for our food, because we only had one supplier, that we would always go visit another distributor. And so we would show up, tell them what we're doing, and we're like, no, that's not going to be a good partner for us. So it really took months and months for us to slowly find those distributors. And then now we got 3 big distributors down there.
Yeah.
So that was how that started.
And I think you can also talk with others. I have a friend that actually works in the grocery store chains, and I'm like, so who do you get? Who are your suppliers, right? And so it's not secretive, that they're out there. Their location is usually when we say Detroit, right? That's 2 hours from us, but that's because it's convenient to get inventory to the wholesaler, right, from other states coming in and whatever. So some will deliver, some we have to pick up. So really it is just some investigative work to find who those suppliers are.
And it's more of like being approved by that individual supplier versus having this one sheet of paper that says, I'm credentialed, work with me.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So are there any licenses that are needed in general, not relating to suppliers, but are there any licenses that the bridge needs?
Yeah. So we have a license from the state of Michigan. Is it agricultural?
I think so.
I think
Food
it is.
license.
Yeah. So as an establishment of a grocery store, we have to have a license for that. And there are criteria that we follow. We do meat packing, which we can talk about a little bit. There's under the licensing that we have to make sure, well, I think that's a separate license that we have to have in order to do that. So some places will need I just lost it, the health inspector, right? And that's more if you're serving food like a restaurant. So I think ours falls under agricultural.
Okay. So there's a handful of food that you pick up, and there's some that gets delivered to
Correct.
you. How do you determine what you have to go get versus what's delivered?
That's really up to the supplier and somewhat of our choice. So our 3 big wholesalers in the Detroit area, they do deliver, but you pay a delivery fee for each one.
A lot, like a couple $100.
At least. So we have a truck, which is a whole cool story. But we take the truck down and we pick up all 3 at one time. So we may spend a couple $100 in fuel to go do that. But that's so we're not paying delivery fees from 3 different suppliers.
So
Others will just deliver.
Does that then take somebody to be in the volunteer seat of like, do they need a CDL? Do they need insurance? That's a lot of liability for a ministry to have. So how do you make sure that being a volunteer run store, you're having people that are like, how do you select that volunteer?
Good question.
Well, I can answer that.
Okay.
I mean, there's funny laws in Michigan, which
Yeah.
I think it's different for everybody, but because I'm on staff and because the bridge was started underneath, the church, you don't need a CDL for the truck. It's a 26-foot box truck, but you have to have a chauffeur license, and then you have to have a Department of Transportation physical. As a volunteer, they just need a Department of Transportation physical, $50. You just call up a doctor. Can you do a DOT physical? And a volunteer, that's all they need. They don't need the chauffeur license.
So preferably you pick somebody that has some truck driving experience
That's always a good idea.
versus just, hey, that looks fun. I'll do that. Because you got to back into those docks, right? And I don't want to do that. So, they're the volunteers. That's, I'll just maybe throw that in. So our volunteers, we're all volunteer run. And you think, oh, the volunteers are the supervisor, somebody that's running the cashier, somebody at the welcome desk, and somebody that maybe puts stuff on the shelf. Well, yep, that's true. That is during operating hours that we're open. Those are the volunteers. I mentioned meat packing. So we buy meat in bulk, and every Wednesday morning we have a team of volunteers that come and they package from the bulk down and vacuum seal it into manageable size pieces. So we have a volunteer team of meat packers. We have the truck driver that goes down and picks up that. And when he gets back, he's got a team of people that meet at the warehouse, and they start unpacking pallets and putting things on shelves. And we have people that order from, to place the order that the driver has to go down and get. We have volunteers that go to the farmer's market for us and pick up things. We have volunteers that actually have people that love to shop. I mentioned going to Meijer or something like that. They scum, they look through the ads and they're like, hey, did you know? And I'm like, nope, because I don't like to shop. Isn't that funny?
Accounting is a big one too.
Accounting, yep. So we have, in fact, we still have a member of Messiah, right, that helps do that. So the financial piece, writing the checks and stuff like that. So we have volunteers that run to the bank to get change because you ran out of quarters. I mean, there's just a lot of opportunities for people to volunteer in a ministry that you don't even think of.
Right.
Cleaning
is a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. So how about funding? Because it's a volunteer-run grocery store, and like you mentioned, if somebody showed up that was making above $90,000 and they bought all of the stuff in the store, it's like, okay, but they bought it, and now we can just buy it all again. So there are still operation costs, lights and rent.
Yep.
How do you raise funds? And just how do you pay for that? Who pays for that?
So I'm going to start that by God's math is not our math. And so, Ed and I had a few conversations about this. I'm like, Ed, this doesn't work. I grew up in the corporate world, right? And 1 + 1 better equal 2. Or and if you subtract 1, that's back to, that's our math. So there is a step of faith in running a ministry. And so we fundraise, I would say, honestly, when I first started and we started doing some of this, I wouldn't call it even fundraising. I think that it is just sharing about the ministry. So we would go to Rotary and the Kiwanis and the Lions Club, and there's a women's philanthropy group and a men's philanthropy group. Like, we would just go and be like, have you heard about the bridge? And just tell them about it. And they're like, wow, that's really cool. What can we do? And so they would usually write a check, and that check would go to some of those administrative costs. One of the big administrative costs we don't have is labor because we're volunteer. So yes, we do have utilities. We have rent, grocery bags, labels for the meat, fuel to go get the inventory. So there is that. When we chose to buy this building and expand, we went to local foundations, businesses, individuals, again, these same philanthropy groups, things like that. You're really just telling them what you're doing. And I think our passion comes through loud and clear when we're sharing that. And food is such a basic need to people that people can relate to that. Food is not a controversial issue to discuss, right? So food is just a basic need. And I think a lot of people come on board. I think our focus this year will be to maybe get some monthly donors. Like every time we get a new customer, there is a cost to that, right? We got to give them that barcode that costs $1. There's a cost involved to add new customers. So really, we're just going out there and saying, here's what we're doing. Is there a way you'd like to partner with us? And that might be by volunteering. It might be by writing a check. It might be by doing a food drive. It might be any of those things.
Okay.
Our first partner was the landlord.
Yeah.
Because we had a big dream to help people with food. And I met with Alex, and he had space. And I invited him for lunch one day, so we sat down for lunch, and I said, you're probably wondering why. And I said, yeah. He said, yeah. I said, I have a big dream to help people with food, but I have no money. And he started laughing. He said, tell me about your dream. So I told him about the dream of what the bridge could be. And I said, but I can't ever promise you that I can pay you rent. And he said, I like the dream. And he started us out with a place with no money. And so we had 3 months of not paying $1. And then he added, it might be like $200 was our rent. And then our rent went up to say $400. And what we promised him is we can't always promise him money, but we can promise him that we're going to work really hard to raise the money to pay him. And we've never skipped a month. In 7.5 years, he was paid every single month.
Wow, that's incredible. So what I'm hearing too, because we've kind of talked about some of the things that our ministries and the way that they're structured is like kind of like gateway healthcare. It's like you can give $35 a month so that somebody can see a doctor and it goes directly to that patient, or you can give to the bridge and it will go directly to the cost of food. You're not paying for things like rent or things like the operations, the overhead costs. But it sounds like you guys both have had interactions with people where they're stirred enough to be like, I can help with the operation costs, so let me help with that. Or like your story of like the paint in the ceilings, like you didn't share that here, but it's like people that it's like that would have been, I don't know if it's considered an operational cost, but at least cost for renovations, maintenance. Yeah. But then it's like you met somebody who looked at the ceiling that was all flaking off and you were like, we don't have money for this. And they were like, but this is what we do. And I can get the paint for that and and take care of this thing. So it's both finding the people who are stirred to give directly to food, but that also kind of frees up the space to then say like, I can help with the operational costs.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, but I think even the operation costs are a little bit different at the bridge. Because you don't have salaries, we have fixed costs. So, I mean, pretty much we have rent, and we have insurance, and we have utilities. Those are fixed costs. So once you get the operational costs for the fixed costs, we can serve an unlimited amount of people for the same amount of money. So once that, I'm kind of pulling it out of the sky, but let's just say it's $4,000 a month for operational costs. Well, that doesn't matter if we serve 500 people or 50,000 people. Those costs don't go up. And that's the beauty of how we've structured this, so that when people give, it's not like, oh, for this amount of money, we can serve this many people. No, we can serve the whole town for the same amount of money.
So you mentioned, giving for food, right? So just to kind of go back to the food. So we raised, and I don't know, I think $60,000 at the beginning. We purchased those 52 pallets of food, and then we used that same 62,000, right? We would just continue, and I think we've turned it over 42
times in the last 7.5
right.
years.
So we have added, obviously, from 52 products to 1,500 products. As people donate to the bridge, we can purchase, if they give $1,000, excuse me, we can go buy $1,000 worth of new items or more of the same. And once we have that inventory in our bank of inventory, then we sell it and we buy it and we sell it and we buy it. So that 60,000 has grown, but that 60,000 is still in the store, but we have done that more. So right now, as we moved into the new location and have more refrigerators and more freezers and more shelving, we have donations are going to new items, right? Broader items. We just got a new supplier. We just got our first delivery today, which is kind of fun, and offering different products that we haven't had before. So we have to fund those originally. But once we have that food is funded. So to contrast that with a food pantry, you fundraise, let's raise $2,000. We'll buy $2,000 of food and give it away. The next time we want to do a food giveaway, we've got to raise another $2,000, buy the food, give it away, raise another $2,000. It's just that cycle. Where ours is, we raised it, now it's there.
Right.
Just
It's
So,
recycle.
Marsha, you just found out, you told me the other day, how much inventory do we have right now? You said currently we have, do you remember?
$83,000.
I think it was 83,000. Wow. So we were at 60, now we're at 83, and there's still money. Somebody actually gave us a gift so that we could actually expand it more. So to date, we have $83,000 of inventory. But this is what's kind of amazing, is that how much did we sell our first month of the new store? Do you remember that number?
Oh, the whole month? The first
Yeah.
week
Well,
was,
the first month
of the store? Like the new store,
53,000, the new
53.
store.
Okay.
So we
Yeah.
sold $53,000 of food the first month in a new store, but we have $83,000 of inventory. So when we talk about taking money like $83,000 and turning it over, I mean, we actually turned over the first 83,000 in the new store in 6 weeks. I mean, so for a donor's perspective, if I give you $10,000 and if you say, well, we're going to double that money every 6 to 8 weeks, that's crazy. So that they don't have to give $10,000 every 6 weeks. We took their original money and we're turning that money over every 6 weeks and using it fully. It's just a whole different concept of doing ministry, that you can take the same amount of money and 10 years from now, we're still going to have the same amount of money or maybe a little bit more,
Right.
but we're going to keep using it over and over and over again. It's really an amazing concept.
So what about store hours? Shifting gears a little bit
Yeah.
here. What hours are you open?
So we currently are open Tuesdays and Wednesdays from noon till 6. Thursdays, we added an hour, so we're open till 7. And Saturdays, we're open from 10 until 2.
So why those hours?
So it started just Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And then, I think that's probably one of our biggest limitations is how many hours we're open, right? Because I'll see some of our customers at Kroger or Meijer or something if I happen to be there on a Sunday afternoon, right? After church, we go get our groceries and, the bridge isn't open, so I'm here, So one, because we're volunteers, we can't burn out our volunteers. I think we would love to expand our hours at some point. And I think this is a great opportunity where some other partner can come in and say, hey, you know what? Why don't you open on Mondays and we'll be your hands and feet in the store. The opportunity for them is they don't have to order. They don't have to whatever. They
No
just
money. They don't
no
have to bring
money.
money.
There's no investment except time to do that. So we can train people to run the store. It's super fun to run the store and be there. So our goal is to be that. We'll never be a 7-day, 24-hour store. That's not our goal. But I would like to be open a little bit more for our customers that can't make it in on the days that we are there. So, but it is partly because of mostly because of volunteers.
Yeah. So how many other people do you have in your position, like managerial? What does it take to run from that perspective?
So there are, I'll say there's 4 of us, right, that are there on a regular basis. Always one of us will be there in charge. And then the volunteers, right now we have 9 volunteers per shift. We divide the day in half. So for an open noon to 6, there's a group of volunteers that are there 3 hours and another group that's there for 3 hours. So they just kind of, each person has their piece and their focus of what they like to do and what they're good at doing and what, they're volunteer. And it's their passion. I think that's the cool thing too about the store is when you're volunteering, you're doing it because you want to.
Yeah. So how do you maintain the vision and mission of that ministry when you have so many volunteers coming from different churches, coming from different corporations? You have people in the business world. You have a lot of different people that you're partnering with. So what is important for someone who is in your position, being like the manager or vision caster? What is it important for them to know to maintain that mission?
Right. That's a great question. We have students. We have people serving community service hours. Yeah, our volunteer group is very diverse. Not everyone knows Jesus like we do. But I think that the bridge is more than just our customers, right? We get to share with our volunteers. We get to share with our suppliers what we're doing and our customers. And so our volunteers, each morning when we start with prayer. And that's just what we do. We're like, thank you, Lord, for allowing us to serve through you. You don't need us to do what we're doing because you could just do it. But thank you for allowing us to serve and help us to represent you well. And so really that is the touch point of each day. So if we have a group of students coming in, maybe they've never been to church in their life, that's okay. That's okay. We just get to love on them as much as we get to love on our customers.
That's good. Ed, are there any other questions that you can think of that would be helpful for listeners to know?
No, I think we covered a lot of ground today. I mean, I'm sure people are going to have to listen to this over and over and over to try to get a feel for it. But they really should go look on the website and see the pictures, because if they take the pictures and then what we just talked about, I think it's going to make so much more sense. And we might want to even, I don't know if we have pictures of the whole place, but we might want to get pictures on the website for these listeners.
Sure.
So that when they go,
good idea.
and we should have a whole spread of pictures so that when you talk about the dock, they can actually see the dock and see where we do the produce and see where we do. And I think it might be really helpful for them to get a good picture of it.
Okay.
Both for the old store and the new store.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Marsha, is there anything else? How might you encourage somebody who is in their church thinking of starting a new ministry? Because we have a lot of people coming up for these workshops that I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, and sometimes they take it back and they do something with it, but sometimes they leave and they're overwhelmed. Can you encourage those listeners?
Yeah. I will say right up front, it takes faith. It takes a leap of faith, and it can be scary. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. The rewards are incredible. So start small. You don't have to start as small as we did. In fact, you come up and we'll help you not start as small as we did, because we can share our learnings with you. But to start, you have to take that step and start. And then God will run with it, right? Like, take the step of faith. I trust God that you believe that we're supposed to do this. We don't know what we're doing, but you've got a resource in this team. And so call on your resources and be willing to start. The rest will fall into place.
That's
Well
awesome.
said, Marsha.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, this is kind of a hard pivot, but I want to add this in here too. Can one of you explain what's happening in Knoxville, just to encourage listeners that it's like, this is not just us. This is not an us thing. This is something that the Lord has invited us into, and something that we're seeing other people start to take steps in. And it doesn't look like what we're doing.
Right.
Like, it's not a copy paste. We encourage people, like, take the concepts and apply them to the area of ministry that you're in a way that is applicable to your community. So what's going on in Knoxville?
Well, I'll start, because I just got a text from our other pastor who said a friend of his is starting a mobile grocery store down in Knoxville, Tennessee. But Marsha, you had a chance to actually talk to them.
Yeah.
So maybe fill in the blank of.
Yeah, so they came up on a visit and saw the old bridge. I don't know that they actually, if they saw the new bridge, it was before it was open. And so they took that concept down, and they're in a food desert area. There's no grocery stores, maybe a gas station. It's a very, very lack of resources in this area. And yeah, they got money for a truck, like $135,000. They've got a truck. They're going to model that for groceries. And how exactly it's going to look, I don't know that they know yet. But the fact that somebody took the step and said, we're going to do something, and that truck will be able to go to these neighborhoods that maybe don't have transportation or just some difficulties. So we're going to come and take the food to them and do it as a grocery store in a truck. So
That's
what
so
a cool
cool.
way, right?
That's really,
so,
really
Amazing.
cool.
so I think that's the other thing, Lyndsay, like you said, it is not a cookie cutter. Here's how you do it. I think there's just those list of things that you have to think about. Does God really want me to do this? Where should we do it? Who has the passion for it?
Yep.
That's start there. Start there.
And ultimately, you just have to do it. You can talk about it. I mean, we've had a lot of groups that came up, and
Tons.
we spent a lot of time with them, and they really want to do it, and they just can't bring themselves to actually try.
Because
think they
God's
realize-
math isn't our math.
Yeah, I think it's once they take that step of faith, and you said this earlier, once you take that step of faith and say, we just have to try, then God steps in to really run the ministry, and you just go for the ride.
And you know what? What if something happened and it failed? Did it really fail? Can I give a really quick example of
please,
God's thing? So we did a fundraiser last year where we were trying to raise funds for the new building and get the community involved. We had a guy sit up on our roof, and he was going to stay up there until we raised
was such a crazy
$60,000. I know, right? And he brought it to us, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so $60,000. Then once we raised that, he would come off the roof. So we would feed him pizzas up the thing and drinks and all that. It was hot, but it was so hot. It was one of those storms, right? So we had him up overnight, and on the second day when we had a car show planned, we had blow up stuff in the parking lot. the clouds rolled in. The weather forecast was like, this is bad.
Seek shelter.
Seek shelter. And he's like, I'm going to stay up here. And we're like, no, you're not. Get down, right? So we had to cancel the car show. We had to take down all the balloon stuff. We brought him off the roof. Our fundraiser was a failure. We raised $6,000 of our 60. That was our goal. And yet at the end of the month, so that was like the last couple days of July, in August, we had 82 or something like that new customers because they saw it on the news. So where is the success factor? Our success factor was $60,000 and we failed. We had 82 new customers walk in the door of the bridge because we did that and took that leap of faith.
Wow.
So really it's God's measure of success, not ours. So if you did the bridge and you helped one person find Christ, it was worth it.
Wow. Very well said. Thank you, Marsha,
You're
for
welcome.
being on this podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
for
Marsha.
listeners for bearing through this really long episode, but I thought it was a great conversation. I enjoyed it a lot. So thank you for being here again today, and we will see everybody next week. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Beyond the Breakwater, a podcast of Elevate Community Ministries. Don't let the conversation stop here. You can email us at hello@beyondthebreakwater.org. We would love to chat with you, answer questions, plan a visit, and help you take your next step. We'll see you next week.